Hey YouTube. First of all, I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good night to each and every one of you. I don't know exactly what time you're going to be watching this video, so I just wanted to say hello and welcome to my channel. The topic that we're going to be focusing on today is QE and the purpose of it, and also we're going to see if the Fed actually printed money to bail out the system. Now, I personally don't believe that they printed money to bail out the system, and I think I have a way to prove it based on an article that was written way back in the Economist magazine of January 9 through 15th, 1988 edition. It says get ready for world currency by 2018. So first, let's look at what quantitative easing is. It says Investopedia says, what is quantitative easing? Quantitative easing is an unconventional monetary policy in which a central bank purchases government securities or other securities from the market in order to lower interest rates and increase the money supply. Quantitative easing increases the money supply by flooding financial institutions with capital in an effort to promote increased lending and liquidity. Quantitative, quantitative easing is considered when short-term interest rates are at or approaching zero and does not involve the printing of new banknotes. Now, if you really listen to what it's saying on this, it's unconventional, first of all. So that's not something of the norm, right? It also increases the money supply by flooding financial institutions with capital. So the truth is, if you're increasing the money supply, then you're actually devaluing the currency according to what's written here. It does not involve the printing of new banknotes. Well, that's true, because the truth be told, we don't have a system where it's 100% cash. you know Most of the transactions we do are digital, so they don't necessarily have to print new banknotes. They can actually manufacture this money digitally and pump it into the system without even creating one new note. So that is true. Breakdown of quantitative easing. It says in quantitative easing, central banks target the supply of money by buying or selling government bonds. When the economy stalls and the central bank wants to encourage economic growth, it buys government bonds. This lowers short-term interest rates and increases the money supply. This strategy loses effectiveness when the interest rate approaches zero, at which point banks have to implement other strategies to kickstart the economy. Another strategy they can use is to target commercial bank and private sector assets in an attempt to spur economic growth by encouraging banks to lend money. Note that quantitative easing is often referred to as QE. Now, this article also has the drawback, and you could actually go to Investopedia or just Google it, and it'll give you the information as far as what QE is. It says if the central bank increases the money supply too quickly, it can cause inflation. This happens when there is increased money, but only a fixed amount of goods available for sale when the money supply increases. A central bank is an independent organization responsible for monetary policy and is considered independent from the government. This means that while a central bank can give additional funds to banks, they can't force the banks to lend this money to individuals and businesses. If this money does not end up in the hands of consumers, the lending to the banks will not impact the money supply and therefore will be ineffective at stimulating the economy. Another potentially negative consequence is that quantitative easing generally causes a depreciation in the value of the home country's currency. Depending on the country, this can be a negative. It is good for a country's export but bad for imports, and can result in the country's residents having to pay more money for imported goods. Now I want to stop right there. Notice that quantitative easing, according to this article, is unconventional and it increases the monetary supply. The strategy loses effectiveness when the interest rates approach near zero. That's exactly what the federal government was doing in America. They had the interest rate at zero for a long period of time for the last 7 to 8 years. It also causes inflation. Now, we know that, well, many people don't know that inflation used to include the CPI used to include food and energy. Those are the things that we have to pay for every time. And the Fed went ahead and exclude these, or the government went ahead and removed these two things that we actually do for consumption, and they said that they're not necessary to be part of CPI. Well, the truth be told, we have to eat and we need energy, whether it's electricity or gas. We need whatever form of energy in order for us to function in this world today. And these are the core part of the CPI that were removed. So they're using some of the bogus figure to actually calculate what the CPI or the core price inflation is going to be. So once the money supplies increase, the actual currency devalues. That's why we're paying so much for gas prices. That's why we're paying so much for electricity. That's why we're paying so much for food. I remember when gas was under $1, and now gas is close to $3 a gallon. Did the gallon of gas increase? No, but the price for the gas increased. So it gives an example of, right here it says quantitative easing is considered an unconventional monetary policy, but it has been implemented a lot in recent times. Following the global financial crisis in 2007-2008, the U.S. Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, implemented several rounds of QE. More recently, the Bank of Japan and European Central Bank have implemented QE. Even the Bank of England has actually did this also. So we got all of this, and people are actually believing that when they went and implemented QE, that this was done because they went to bail the system out, or they wanted to bail the banks out. I personally know and I understand that this was all a ploy or plot or continuation of their entire plan to bring in a one world monetary system. And by printing all of this money, it's actually is going to destroy the currencies all around the world. And I do believe that we're on a cusp of a financial market crash. And this money was printed in order to to make it seem like the system would be prolonged. But the truth be told, what they were actually doing is kind of like draining the rest value from the currencies. And I think that we're on the cusp of either monetary destruction completely. We already have currency wars, but I do believe that the stock market is actually at the point where it should show some effects within the next month or so of crashing. So I'm going to go to the article. This article is on socialecohistory.wordpress.com. I go to this site here because this site has some real good information. But this is an article that was written, a while back on this site. But he went ahead and posted it because I don't have access to the Economist magazine of 1988. But it's good to have a good source like this that actually was able to post it. He says, get ready for a world currency. Now look at this big old phoenix. This is not an eagle. This is a phoenix. See the little crown and stuff on the head? And this coin here looked like Bitcoin. It actually looks like the digital currency for Bitcoin, It has the infinite sign on it, which means that this currency either is going to be infinitely accepted or maybe it's going to be infinitely passed up. To be honest with you, I don't know whether it is an infinite sign or mega sign. I don't know exactly what it is. But anyway, This is the currency, and it actually looks like a big gold coin or gold medallion. See the big old chain around the neck there, and it could be a digital currency, it could be Bitcoin. But underneath here, if you was to blow this picture up, you're gonna see that this is a picture of all fiat currencies, all of them. So when they say get ready for a world currency, know that they mean one world currency. Okay. So let's read this article that was printed on 1988. And the volume is 306, pages 9 and 10. 30 years from now, Americans, Japanese, Europeans, and people in many other rich countries and some relatively poor ones will probably be paying for their shopping with the same currency. Prices will be quoted not in dollars, yen, or D-marks, but in, let's say, the Phoenix. The Phoenix will be favored by companies and shoppers because it will be more convenient than today's national currencies, which by then will seem a quaint cause of much disruption to economic life in the last 20th century. At the beginning of 1988, this appears an outlandish prediction. Proposals for eventual monetary union proliferated 5 and 10 years ago, but they hardly envisaged the setback of 1987. Now, in 1987, what they're talking about was that stock market crash that went ahead and took hundreds of millions of people money in just one day. It says the governments of the big economies tried to move an inch or two towards a more managed system of exchange rate, a logical preliminary, it might seem, to radical monetary reform. To radical monetary reform? Is this the same as the unconventional QE that they're talking about? Okay, let's move on. For lack of cooperation to their underlying economic policies, they bungled it horribly and provoked a rise in interest rates that brought on a stock market crash of October. This is October 1987. These events have chastened exchange rate reformers. The market crash taught them that the pretense of policy cooperation can be worse than nothing, and that until real cooperation is feasible, that is, until governments surrender some economic sovereignty, further attempts to peg currencies will flounder. Now, why would they say until the government surrenders some economic sovereignty? Well, the truth be told, the only way for them to bring forth a one world currency is for all governments to abandon their rules. Break their rules, go along with whatever policy that they are. And the only way for them to actually cause this to happen is through a financial crash. See, what happened, that panic of 07, 08, that's nothing new. Ever since the central bank, the Federal Reserve was instituted in America since 1913, there has been central bank intervention that caused stock market crashes from that time even up to today. And the mother of all stock market crashes is actually getting ready to happen. Because if you look at the stock markets, we actually in a blow-off period where the Dow Jones Industrial has just went to a new all-time high. You keep hearing this new all-time high. If you pull up the newspapers from back in 1929 and 2007, 2008, you're going to see the Wall Street gurus out there. Yeah, the Dow Jones Industrial has just hit a new all-time high. It's time to get in the market. And at the same time, if you check the insider trading on many of these companies, you're going to see that the CEO and all these other insiders are actually dumping the stocks while they take the hedge funds or the mutual funds are taking your money and putting it into the stock market and causing you to buy at the highest peak or the highest point at the stock market. And when they start to pull out, they pull out in droves. So once the market starts crashing, they're going to align themselves on the other side. Or they'll sit and wait until the stocks becomes penny on the dollar and they're going to buy it back up. And at that time, you who don't know better, who don't even know anything about the stock market, you're going to be suckered. That's exactly what they're going to do. You know, one guy who's pushing a lot of that stuff is Jim Cramer. And back in 2007 or 08, he was one of them who was telling people to buy the stock market. Ain't nothing going to happen. And he was the same one who turned around and said, you know what? Bulls make a lot of money. Bears make a lot of money. But pigs, they get slaughtered. And who do you think they consider to be the pigs? You. You, the small man, the man who is out there. Those are the ones who they consider the pigs. Because the truth be told, bulls and bears bet on the stock market. Pigs are the ones who, the small investor who actually invest. So I just wanted to share that with you. Let's continue with the article. It says the new world economy. The biggest exchange in the world economy since the early 1970s is that flows of money has replaced trade in goods as the force that drives exchange rate. As a result of the relentless integration of the world's financial markets, differences in national economic policies can disturb interest rates or expectations of future interest rates only slightly, yet still call forth huge transfers of financial assets from one country to another. These transfers swamp the flow of trade revenues in their effect on the demand and supply for different currencies, and hence in their effect or exchange rates. As telecommunication technology continues to advance, these transactions will be cheaper and faster still. With uncoordinated economic policies, currencies can get only more volatile. Now, the only way for currencies to become more volatile is by changing the rules, you know. If you have a sound currency that's backed by a sound asset, say gold, because gold is money actually, and the dollar is actually fiat or a derivative of gold, you know. So if you have a sound currency that is backed by actual money, which is gold or silver, then you wouldn't have, you know, currencies that are volatile and up and down, because a country can't really borrow more than they have. You know, today we have credit, which causes us to borrow more than we could afford, and it puts us in debt. So when the system crashes, you're liable for that debt. So now you become a bigger slave than you are, because it should be told you have that noose around your neck. Now I wanted to go down a little further, right, and read some of the other things, right? But let's just continue because the article is very short. It says in all these ways, national economic boundaries are slowly dissolving. As the trend continues, the appeal of a currency union across at least the main industrial countries will seem irresistible to everybody except foreign exchange traders and government. In the Phoenix zone, economic adjustment to shifts in relative prices would happen smoothly and automatically, rather as it does today between different regions within large economies. The absence of all currency risk would spur trade, investment, and employment. Now, it says the absence of all currency risk would spur trade. The one thing these people don't tell you, every single time that something happens, they always have a solution. They create their problem, they wait for you to react to it, and then they give you a solution. The Hegelian dialectic. That's exactly what it's called. You know, problem, reaction, solution. So the problem is they need a one world government. So what do? They create a problem, crash the stock market. The reaction is you can't get your money out of the system because it's tied up. Well, we got a solution for you. You know, accept this one world currency that we have, you know, that we got full and total control of, and you get some of your money back. They ain't gonna give you all your money back. They don't never give you all your money back. Kind of like the IRS, you know. You work 100% of your hours, but yet still, these thieves, they steal your money. You know, tell you got to pay taxes on it. But the only reason that you could pay taxes on that money is because the truth be told, they created it. It's fiat. It's not really money itself. So you have to take their fiat and turn it into assets. And truth be told, you get good assets or real assets. It ain't really no taxes on it, you know. But let's go down. Let's read the last part. It said, as the next century approaches, the natural forces that are pushing the world towards economic integration will offer governments a broad choice. They can go with the flow or they can build barricades. Preparing the way for the phoenix will mean fewer pretend agreements on policy and more real ones. Sorry. It will mean allowing and then actively promoting the private sector use of an international money alongside existing national monies. That would let people vote with their wallet for the eventual move to full currency union. The phoenix would probably start as a cocktail of national currencies, just as the special drawing rights is today. That's the SDR. In time, though, its value against national currencies would cease to matter because people would choose it for its convenience and the stability of its purchasing power. So the only way, like I said, that they're going to do this is they have to create a problem that's going to force every country to have to accept this. We just saw China last year join the IMF. You know, their currency, the yuan, is part of the IMF now. The yen, the dollar, the euro, the British pound, all of these are already done part of it. Now they have to integrate the smaller economies, you know, and bring them into the fold. They have to bring all of these right into the fold before acceptance could be done. You see, China is coming up with a new SWIFT system. Russia is actually buying gold just like China. All of these countries are setting up for when this new system comes out. And I can guarantee you it's going to be as good as gold. Because the truth be told is they're not going to use it and not give you something to believe in. But the truth is having something as good as gold is still not gold. Because I can give you a gold credit card and you can't pump no gold out of that card. And that's exactly the kind of foolishness that they're going to use and give to you. The last part of this says the alternative to preserve policy making autonomy would involve a new proliferation of truly draconian controls on trade and capital flows. This course offers government a splendid time. They could manage exchange rate movements, deploy monetary and fiscal policy without inhibition, and tackle the resulting burst of inflation with prices and income policies. It is a growth crippling prospect. Pencil in the phoenix for around 2018 and welcome it when it comes. What this is telling you is everything that they're doing is not for growth. It's going to cripple growth. Now think about that for a moment. You got the Fed and everybody telling you how the economy is growing. But yet still, this article is showing you that all these draconian measures, austerity measures, tax increases, tax cuts, all of these things are crippling growth. It's a growth crippling prospect. This thing is not set up for you to for the system to recover. So people say that the Fed printed money to save the system. No, the Fed didn't print money to save the system. QE was never made to save the system. QE was made to destroy the system. If you like the contents of this video, please share it. Subscribe to me. Give me a thumbs up. I just like to look at things from a different perspective because everybody today, they singing the system is going to crash. They tell you the information, this, that, and the other. I'm not here to bash anyone because, I truly appreciate the information that's out there, especially when it comes to the economy. All I can say to each and every one of you all is, Gerald Salento said, get gold, get gun, and get a getaway plan. But the one thing that he forgot to say is you need to get the Almighty God first. Anyway, this is your boy MC, and I just wanted to share this information with you. One love. Peace.